Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I am a GA in the Office of Gradwell. We host various wellness events and workshops across the university for graduate students to help them be well during their time at Boise State. Today, we are going to be chatting about how to be interview ready for academic and professional jobs post graduation. I want to preface and say this workshop is how to be interview ready for an academic or professional position in a Western society. If you are looking for jobs in other countries, their interview standards and structures may be different. You may need to do some additional research to prepare for international interviews. At the end of this video, we hope you will be able to walk away with these three key takeaways. We hope that you will be able to walk away feeling more confident during an interview in both professional and academic settings, to learn how to talk about yourself and your research in a clear and concise way, and gain the knowledge of expectations during an interview and how to respond to interview questions. We'll first begin by going over interview structures. To feel more confident during an interview, it helps to know what to expect during one. Types of interviews. There are many types of interviews you will be invited to. The most common ones include phone call interviews, virtual interviews, presentation and job talk interviews, campus interviews, dinner interviews, and lastly, professional interviews. Phone call interviews. These kinds are held over the phone. They typically make sure you meet the requirements for the position. You will most likely go over your work experience and how it's relevant to the position, in addition to some basic questions to get to know you as a candidate. Make sure you have a quiet place to take the call without any distractions. Virtual interviews. Treat these like a normal interview. Wear something professional and make eye contact with your interviewer by looking at the computer camera. Join the meeting early in case you have trouble with your Wi-Fi or your video call app. Be sure to have a simple, quiet, and non-distracting background and environment. Presentation and job talk interviews. During these, your main job is presenting your research to potential academia employers and even students. Your presentation may take as long as an hour, with a remaining time of 20 to 30 minutes to answer audience questions. Campus interviews. Campus interviews will have a variety of interactions. You will have both group and individual interactions, presentations to faculty, and a lecture to a class. In total, you can expect your time to be broken down into 5% of personal downtime, 15% of presentation time, and 80% of your time spent in meetings. Depending on the location of the campus, you may have to travel. As soon as you know all of the details, start booking transportation and lodging. In addition to time spent interviewing on campus, spend some time in the location you are visiting. This can help determine if you can see yourself living and working here. Dinner interviews. Dinners are typically held at the conclusion of your interview process. While they are informal, still treat it like a typical interview. Just because you got invited to dinner does not mean you have the position just yet. Engage in the conversations going on around you, get to know people better, and avoid bringing up any controversial topics. Professional interviews. Your typical professional interview will consist of greetings and icebreakers, employer questions, candidate questions, and closing and next steps. Breaking it down, for greetings and icebreakers, you want to be nice and polite to whoever greets you. Not only are you making a first impression on the people interviewing you, you are also making a first impression on the people who work in the building. Who knows, after this interview, you might be working with them. Don't forget to introduce yourself. Most of the time, your interviewer will come out and meet you. They will, they will introduce themselves first and typically offer a handshake. Whatever they do, match it with confidence. If there is a reason you are unable to match their greeting, give a brief reason why. Employer questions. You will be asked a variety of questions. We will go over them later in the video. No matter the question you're being asked, be honest. The person who is interviewing you just wants to know who you are and what you are like as a worker. Be honest with them about yourself and your experiences. Hopefully, this will make you feel less nervous, as you won't be trying to make up something that isn't true. Candidate questions. After the employer has asked you questions, they will then ask if you have any questions for them. If you say you don't have any for them, this shows a lack of interest in the position and company. Try and come up with at least 3 questions to ask them. Closing and next steps. After all questions are asked, the interviewer will give you a timeline on when to hear back from them and with their decision. Thank them for their time and express that you're looking forward to hearing from them soon. Presenting yourself. Start by being prepared. As soon as you know the details of your interview, you can start preparing for them. To start, Know the position you are interviewing for. This seems like a no-brainer, but the more you know about the position, the more you can incorporate the aspects of the position into your interview presentations, responses, and questions. This helps show your interest in the position. Know the type of interview you have. Depending on what type you have, you may need to create a presentation, buy a professional outfit, or make travel arrangements. In order to come prepared, start planning and preparing once you know the format you are interviewing in. Know who you will be interviewing with, the institution, and know your future colleagues. This is especially crucial in academia positions. When working at a college, university, or institution, you want to make sure you are familiar with both the institution, the area around it, and the faculty and their interest fields. You want to make sure your career goals and values match with the institution and fellow faculty members. Know your interview materials. Practice your interview materials. Make sure you can synthesize and explain your research to people who are both familiar and unfamiliar with your work. Think 3-minute thesis. If you have a presentation, you may want to make note cards to keep you on track with your presentations. You should also prepare at least 3 questions you can ask at the end of your interview. Dress to impress. First impressions matter. Did you know it only takes someone a tenth of a second to form a first impression about you based on what they see? You literally have a split second to make it count. Luckily, that split second is all visual. People are looking at your face, body language, and what you're wearing. It is typically appropriate to wear business casual to interviews. However, some higher prestige positions, like working for a university or government job, may entail wearing business formal attire. When in doubt, it never hurts to overdress for an interview. Boise State has 2 campus resources to get professional attire if you are struggling to get some. These include the Atkins Law Career Closet and the J.C. Penney's Suit Up Nights. In preparation for an interview, make sure your clothes look neat and orderly, and that you are dressing to a degree of professionalism. While professionalism in your attire is not a great metric of the quality of work you are capable of, it sets a good first impression on your interviewer when you are dressed appropriately. During the interview, it is important to keep your composure and to be aware of your body language, language used, overall tone of voice, and to wear professional attire. It can be difficult to be aware of your body language and what words you are using during an interview. However, to feel less anxious about your interview and more aware of your mannerisms, it helps to practice at home with a friend or family member before your official interview. By staging a mock interview, you can build confidence in your responses to questions, even if it isn't actual interview questions, as well as gain insight into what your body language is communicating before you begin your interview. If you don't have someone at home to do a mock interview with, Career Services on campus can do one with you. Presenting your research. Research discussion points. Some main points are the topic of your dissertation research, future research interest, a desire to teach at the university, and what interests you specifically about the institution. Ultimately, these points of conversation are where you get to let your great characteristics shine. What makes you such a good candidate for the position? By thinking critically and honestly about what you want from this position and what skills or knowledge you can bring to the table, you are more likely to impress your interviewer. Your dissertation. Talk about your research. After all, you are the expert of the very specific topic you chose to dedicate your doctoral dissertation to. When institutions are looking to hire new lecturers or researchers at their university, it is typically implied that your research is outside of what has already been done at the university, or it is additive to what another researcher may be doing at the university. With that being said, what stands you apart from your competition, and how can your niche focus of your dissertation be applied and utilized at this new university? Future research interests. Demonstrate understanding of your current niche of research while also conveying you know how you can apply this understanding to future research interests. Since you have a basis of understanding for your area, you can express ways to transition into future research areas. Teaching. Indicate any teaching experience have current you have currently in your interview, then express what will make you a good candidate for teaching in the position you are applying for. When it comes to teaching, what sets you apart from your competition? Justify reasons for why you should be hired. Interest in the institution. What about the particular institution you are interviewing at interests you? Is it the culture, the research, the faculty you hope to work for? Convey your personal reasons why you want to be a part of the institution. Ultimately, by conveying your perspective for what you have to offer for the institution, as well as what you are looking for, interviewers can take note of the passion you hold. Interview questions and responses. Types of questions that you might be asked during an interview. You first might be asked open-ended questions. The point of these questions is to give you the freedom to take control and the direction you want the interview to go in. With no specific answer you need to address, you can share qualities or stories that make you stand out. For example, you might be asked, "Why do you want to work here?" Behavioral questions. Behavioral questions are asked as many employers believe that the most accurate predictor of future performance is a past performance in a similar situation. Strengths and weaknesses questions. These kind of questions help your employer learn more about you and your reflective ability. Case scenario questions. Case scenario questions are asked in a similar way, and for a similar reason, behavioral questions are asked. However, case scenario questions show an employer your skills, knowledge, and ability to handle a situation that will most likely happen on the job. One way you can answer behavioral questions is by utilizing the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. You may have heard of this before, but we will break it down and provide an example of how it might be used. So starting with your situation, you want to give context to it. So for example, you might say, a coworker was off sick, leaving an important project unfinished. Then you would move on to task. Clearly define what needs to be addressed. You might say, I was instructed to take on the project with no leniency on the deadline. And then action. Explain how you handled the situation. You might say, I requested a reduction on my other weekly goals and outputs. I also delegated small tasks to other team members. Lastly, you'll want to share the end result of what happened. So, you might say, I delivered the project on time and was given further responsibility on future projects. Lastly, we'll be going over some interview tactics to help you shine at your interview. So if you don't know the answer to a question, you can ask if you can always circle back to the question later if you don't know how to answer it. Or you can also follow up with a thank you email. Lastly, we have some examples of some strong post-interview questions to ask at the end of your interview. They include, what are some mistakes new employees can make so I can avoid them and be aware of them? Are there any opportunities for professional development built into the position? And what does a typical day on the job look like? Thank you! Thank you for watching the video. You can visit the Gradwell website by scanning the QR code to stay updated with our latest events and future workshops.